Good news. Luke Evangelista returned to practice yesterday. What can we expect from him once he's cleared and gets back in the game? We're going to talk about what the Predators are going to need from Vange. And today we're going to hear from Andrew Brunette on goaltending, offense, and the problem on the defense.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Tuesday, everyone. Welcome to the Locked On Predators podcast. Thanks so much for making us your first listen of the day. We are a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to kick off this It's Tuesday, but it's not a game day episode with a shout out to our Locked On Predators insiders and to our everydayers who tune in each and every day to talk Nashville Predators hockey with us. We appreciate your support. We love getting through this season together. I'm Ann Kimmel. I am a co-host and a writer with Penalty Box Radio. And my friends, I have a partner in crime.
You do. I'm Emma Lingen, and I'm the Predators site editor and reporter for the Hockey News.
Got a lot to talk about on today's show. Of course, we had the return of Luke Evangelista to practice yesterday. There was much rejoicing. It was great to see him skating. There's still no official word on his return, but we're going to take a look at what the Predators are going to need from Luke once he is ready to go in a game. Plus, we heard from Andrew Brunette, and he answered some questions about Juuse Saros. He answered some questions about the offense. And he answered some questions about the defense. We're going to share his answers and talk through that with you as well. Before we dive into everything today, do want to let you know today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here, and there is no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Of course, lots that we want to talk about, Emma, but let's get to the hot story that I think we want to make sure everybody is updated on, and that involves Zachary Leroux and musical theater. Of course, if you've been following along with Locked On Predators, you know that I suggested Zach Leroux watch Wicked. There was something resembling a confrontation. Emma witnessed it. She has not put money on whether I would have won in some sort of physical scrap or if Zachary Leroux would have. I'm a little hurt by that. But I do want to update everybody. Zach Leroux had turned it off an hour and 40 minutes in, said it was crap. He did come back at practice yesterday and say, you know what, guys? I gave it another chance and I turned it off too early. The final 40 minutes were fantastic. Definitely worth the watch. So everybody, you heard it here first. The Leroux review is in on Wicked. Watch it all the way through.
I was so happy to get this update. I was a little nervous when you said there was a second installment in this confrontation because I was not there. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see I'm in a different location. I was moving on Monday, so did not make it to practice. So when I heard that Zach came up to you, I was like, oh no, and I wasn't there to referee. What went down? What happened?
Yeah.
So
Michael McCarron and Luke Shen, be ready, because if Emma's not there and Zach and I throw down, somebody's going to have to jump in and break it up.
Yeah.
But he liked it. I also, the original conversation was also that I needed to watch Wonka. He loved Wonka. I watched it. I got to tell you, I did not think I would like it, and I found it delightful. So there is a little bit of an update on Zach Leroux, Wicked, and Wonka. We're here for all the cutting edge hockey. Like, you're not going to get this from Kevin Weeks, y'all.
No.
On the side of the highway.
What if Kevin Weeks just like tweeted a picture of the skyline of Oz, and just, instead of Pittsburgh, it's just the Emerald City of Oz.
That's
then people
all should have started.
I'll text Kevin next time to do that. And just start a whole thing.
Tell him, look, Kevin, you are missing one of the hottest stories in the NHL right now. If you could just tweet out Oz. and stir that pot. That would be really amazing. Did you see his most recent update about Logan Thompson's extension? He pulled over on the frickin' turnpike, y'all.
Yes, he did.
As somebody who had a tire blowout on 65, can I just tell you, do not pull over to the side of a highway and open your door.
Well, okay, but if the alternative is film yourself while driving, then I would say
Also
yes,
not
pull over to the side.
Yeah.
But also for a second, because you brought it up, and then we will talk about the Predators, but can we talk about what a bargain that deal is for Logan Thompson?
I know.
You get him for 5 years for under $6 million a year. Like, that's huge. We were just I host the wraparound show over for the Hockey News, and we were just talking about him last week, and like, man, I don't know, like if he's gonna be in for a big payday. I don't know if Washington will be able to afford him. And then he signs that. I'm like,
Washington is loving life right now.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Loving life. Yeah. That was a big signing for them. But film it in your car next time, Kevin Weeks, and keep your seatbelt on.
Yeah.
But,
eyes on the road.
Eyes on the road. Eyes on the road. Yeah. Anyway, we do have news focused right here at home, and this was very exciting. Got to practice yesterday morning, and who was skating on the ice but number 77, our good friend Luke Evangelista. He was back practicing with the team. It was actually great to see. Another quick little roster update from yesterday. Spencer Stastny has been reassigned to Milwaukee. If you're listening to the audio portion, you missed my face, but you can imagine what my face is. Reassigning Stastny. What are we doing?
Anne was none too pleased about that, but I mean, if the choices were have him sit on the bench in Nashville versus play in Milwaukee, then I get it. He is still on that 2-way contract for this year. You take advantage of that while you can. Get him some more reps, and I think he'll be back here before the end of the year.
Yeah, he will be back. Of course, he did have the fewest minutes and the fewest shifts on Saturday versus the Ducks, and I know that they just want to keep him skating. So, okay. That's my face. But again, Luke Evangelista back at practice. He was injured versus Winnipeg on January 7th. It was a lower body injury. It was hard to watch because he had trouble like even putting weight on his leg. He has 4 goals, 14 points in 39 games played this season. We did not hear from Andrew Brunette or anyone else a specific timetable for his return. Of course, the Predators have a game tomorrow night, so we'll probably get more information at Morning Skate tomorrow on this. But Emma, overall, how important is it to get Vange back in this lineup, and why?
Well, we talked about this a little bit. I don't know if it was last week or yesterday. They all run together. I've aged about 10 years in the last 24 hours, so I don't know where I am.
Moving is evil. It is a necessary evil.
Moving while sick, do not recommend. Anyway,
0 stars.
Whenever we last discussed this, I think one of the things that we talked about was getting Evangelista back in the lineup with Tommy Novak, who has gotten hot of late, and those two tend to play very well together. And they read each other very well. So getting him back with Novak, I think, is going to be good. And then on top of that, the Novak Svechkov. See, Svechkov combination has been really, really solid. And so I think that I would like to see how Evangelista fits in with that dynamic. Now, I'm not expecting it. Lord knows nothing with this team happens overnight. So I'm not expecting it to be like instant chemistry, but I would like to kind of see how that plays out. And then you get LaRue goes back up to the second line with O'Reilly and Nyquist. And to me, I know that Vinny Hinostroza was leading the AHL in scoring, but he hadn't done much since he got to the NHL. He's just been, not that he's been a liability per se, he just he's not a second line winger, but he's had to be.
Yeah.
So I think that, getting Evangelista back with those guys, those two in particular, Novak and Svechkov, I'm very excited about the possibility of what could happen there.
I agree with you. I think this is going to be a really great opportunity for the three of them to sort of feed off of each other. And we know that Evangelista is not having the season that he anticipated. Of course, insert every single Nashville Predators player's name in that sentence. But kind of going through that sophomore slump, and a couple of weeks ago at Penalty Box Radio Live, we had Mark Borowiecki on. And one of the things that he talked about is that he's really spent a lot of time kind of researching that phenomenon, that kind of nebulous phenomenon in the NHL called the sophomore slump, and really started to dive in and look at, okay, what are the actual factors that go into that second year? And it was so interesting. Mark Borowiecki is so interesting to begin with, but this was really interesting because he was like, I've really spent a lot of time researching it. And he said part of it is, yes, the new has worn off, like the adrenaline of the NHL has worn off. He's like, the other thing is you've been to the arenas. You're not going to a new city for the first time. Not much is new, not much is exciting. And the season, you are in the physical grind of the season, and you feel the grind of the season differently your second year in the league than you do in the first year. And I also think that just this season in particular really fed into maybe Luke Evangelista not having the sophomore season that we anticipated, because I think you brought in these new players, and we've talked about this in other situations where I feel like there was almost like this subconscious deferring to veterans. And not that I at all feel like Luke Evangelista or Tommy Novak or anybody was like, well, I'm going to let them do it. But I think there is sort of this shifting in the locker room that affects the way everybody kind of subconsciously processes the game. So you hate to see the numbers that Evangelista's had this season, but I think you could very confidently say this is a player who is going to be a key component of the Nashville Predators going forward. And when you talk about that Novak, Svechkov, and Vange line, that could be a line that is a line of the future for the Predators team. But all three of them need to be consistently good, consistently where they're at right now.
Yeah, it's interesting what you say about the deferring to veterans. I think we saw that a little bit. I mean, especially at the beginning of the season, not just with Evangelista, but with everyone. It was kind of just like, oh, well, we brought in these big guns, so let them handle it. And it's just, I don't know. I think about when Evangelista first came up to the NHL, it was the end of the 22-23 season when everyone and their brother was injured or had been traded. And so he kind of got thrust into the spotlight pretty quickly, and he had to be one of the main drivers of offense because he was the guy. And that was where we saw him really succeed. Now, again, there's all these mental components that you discussed with the, first year versus second year, all of that. But I think it's when he had the larger role that he thrived more. And so it'll be, I'm not saying, again, when he does come back to the lineup, he will still be on the third line, but that's a highly skilled third line. So I think that it's a situation where I think he could thrive if given the chance.
I agree with that. And of course, love Vange's energy in the locker room, love his energy on the ice. Again, we'll wait till tomorrow morning skate. We should get an official word. Is he going to be back in tomorrow night's game against the Canucks? Well, we have to wait a few more days. We'll let you know tomorrow after practice as soon as we hear anything. Coming up, we did get a chance to sit down and chat with Andrew Brunette after practice yesterday as well. We're going to tell you what he had to say about Juuse Saros' recent performances, the offensive windfall, and he talked about the defense too. We'll tell you what he had to say. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here, sans the Buffalo Bills, but we're going to all try to move on. One game, two teams, endless possibilities. And there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. Plus, knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, that's icing on the cake. Download the FanDuel app or head to fanduel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you're going to score $200 in bonus bets. That's fanduel.com. Bet with FanDuel, official partner of Super Bowl 59. All right, Emma, got to see Vange back on the ice. Also got a chance to chat with Andrew Brunette, and it was a great opportunity to sort of ask him the questions that I think are on everybody's mind. On yesterday's show, of course, you and I talked about the Juuse Saros rumblings. Is something wrong with Juuse Saros? Is Andrew Brunette losing confidence in Juuse Saros? And look, you and I have joked before about the fact that Andrew Brunette has trust issues. So got a chance to ask Andrew Brunette point blank about Juuse Saros. And the question was, do Juuse Saros's numbers concern you right now? Talking about his recent performances over this last stretch. This is what Andrew Brunette had to say about Juuse Saros.
No, not really. I mean, there's ebbs and flows of the year. I would say his game probably isn't up to his standard the last, 3-4 weeks. But again, if you look at the whole of the last game, even the Chicago game, maybe didn't like a goal, but he made some unbelievable saves and kept us in games to give us a chance to win. And that's all you really ask for your goaltender. He's been an elite performer for a long time, and there's no wavering of thinking that he's not still that.
There is no wavering of thinking he is not still an elite goaltender. Now, nobody expects the coach to come out, no matter how bad the goaltender is, and be like, yeah, that goaltender, he sucks. But Andrew Brunette is a straight shooter. If there was some sort of crisis of confidence with Juuse Saros, if there was a giant concern about Juuse Saros, I think we would hear more about it. And I just don't think it's a story, Emma.
It's not. And I don't even want to give any more energy to this because, again, we go through this every year. Usually it's at the beginning of the year. Oh my God, he's having a slow start. He's terrible. What have we done? Let's just let him have his little slump right now. It's okay. And
it's the Predators, first one of the season, you all.
And let me say, the Predators are where they are right now in the standings, not because of Juuse Saros.
Yes.
And that's the thing. I would say if this was like a first place team and he started struggling like this, then that would be a different conversation maybe. But I think right now there's all kinds of problems with this Predators team. He is far from the top of the list. I don't like the constant his numbers aren't good. And it's like, well, you know what? Your numbers aren't going to be good when the defense in front of you is playing the way they are right now. So
tell me who on this roster is walking around with good numbers. Nobody. And Juuse Saros, we said this on yesterday's show, but it bears repeating. Juuse Saros did everything he could to get this team off to a better start. That he did not receive goal support offensively. So while his record stinks, that record is a reflection of so much more than Juuse Saros. People who are like, well, there's a goalie controversy now. Seems like Bruno really likes Ananen. Talked to Andrew Brunette about Ananen yesterday. Andrew Brunette does really like Ananen. Everybody in Nashville should really like Justus Ananen. This is a really good young goaltender who has come in and done well. Andrew Brunette talked about the fact that he is a big body. Pucks bounce off of him. And that's true. He also is, Andrew Brunette said this yesterday, very calm, even in, if he is going in as a replacement in kind of a situation where the Predators are in a hole. He just has a very calm presence about him. These are all things that Andrew Brunette likes. Andrew Brunette also said, look, Juuse Saros is feeling it right now. And goaltending is wizardry and skill and science and vibes. And right now, Ananen is feeling it. That is not to say that Juuse Saros is not.
Well, and this is exactly what you want in a backup goaltender for when the inevitable slump, even if it's just a few games, happens for your starting goaltender. You want the guy who's calm and collected and can come in and hold down the fort. And that's exactly what a backup does. It doesn't mean that, oh, well, now they like him better. No, that's why you have a backup.
Well, and Nashville they have not functioned with a typical backup goaltender sharing of the schedule since before Pekka Rinne. You know what I'm saying? So what is normal in the NHL to a Nashville Predators fan base may look like a goaltender controversy. No, this is just the way most teams do the goaltending. They divide it up.
Seriously, it's becoming a tandem league, and we've been saying this forever that Juuse Saros should not play as much as he does, especially now that he's signed to this long-term contract. You want that contract to age well, so you don't want to overdo it.
Yeah, agreed. We did ask Andrew Brunette about the goals, the number of goals the Nashville Predators has given up, and what is going on with the defense. This is what Bruno had to say about the defense's play of late.
I think probably the most glaring thing of the stretch, we've had a really good stretch where we didn't give up a whole lot, is just the emphasis and the focus on the puck. I don't think we've taken care of it nearly well enough. And we're playing these fast, young transition teams that come at you waves, and you keep taking on water. Sooner or later, it's not going to be good. And that's how I kind of felt the last 3 games. We had some great comebacks. We did some really good things offensively in all 3, but we just gave up a little too much, especially off the rush, especially against these young, fast teams. They're giving up that much. We're not taking care of the puck. It usually, if it doesn't get you right away, sooner or later, it gets you.
Yeah, if it doesn't get you right away, sooner or later it's going to get you. And that is what we've seen. And you look at, say what you want about San Jose, say what you want about Anaheim. Those are teams that have some young speed on them. They are teams that are going to beat you on the rush. And if you do not protect the puck, if you are not playing solid defense, you can only expect your goaltender to do so much before at some point you get burned. And I think Andrew Brunette summed it up. Now, I think there are a lot of other things going on with the defense, but I think that that's a really great point. You can only take on water so long before your ship is going to sink.
Yeah, I'm glad that he brought up the transition defense, because it has not been good. It's been so sloppy. Just guys getting caught too low in the zone, and then they have to haul ass back to the other end of the ice, and it's not in time, especially when you got a young, speedy team, no matter how, where they are in the standings. If they're young and they're fast. The Predators are not young, it's going to catch up with you. So people talk a lot about, this Predators team, or the second oldest team in the league, they're going to be slow, blah, blah. Maybe so, but that only becomes a problem if you can't take care of the puck. And right now it's a problem because they can't take care of the puck. And so that's the thing. It's it doesn't need to be a problem. If they're more sound defensively, then it's not as much of an issue how old they are or how fast they are. I mean, speed is always a good thing, but it's they just are not being defensively responsible or even offensively responsible, talking about scoring in transition off the rush. How many passes have we seen land on the tape of the opponent and it's in the offensive zone? And that's when the defense gets caught too low in the zone and they got to run back, and they're not there in time. And so they just, again, we talk about this. It's not just the defenseman, but also just the sharpness and the preciseness of the passes and everything from the forwards too. It needs to be better.
Yeah. They spent a lot of time at yesterday's practice working on defense against a rush. A lot of time. And it was forwards, it was defensemen. And so you can tell Andrew Brunette says, I see it, and we're gonna have to work on this. Coming up, we are gonna hear from Andrew Brunette on the number of goals that the Nashville Predators are scoring. We're also going to talk about the mental game this team has to play right now. You hear us on the show talk often about our Locked On Predators insider community. Look, Emma and I love hanging out and chatting at Nashville Predators hockey with our insider community beyond the podcast. We, of course, connect about different questions, different topics. We love to get their input on what they're seeing in games. We, of course, always want to hear their one words as well, and just love connecting about Nashville Predators with them. If you are interested in joining our Locked On Predators insider community via subtext, want to let you know that you can find a link in this video description, or you can check out the link in our bio. Just to round out the number of questions that Andrew Brunette answered, he was great. We had a great time talking with him yesterday after practice. Did ask him about what feels like a windfall of goals offensively for the Nashville Predators, who, quite frankly, couldn't buy goals earlier in the season. This is what Bruno had to say about the number of goals the Predators are scoring and where they're coming from.
Part of it is we're due. I think we've created and we've had the puck a lot through the stretch of the whole season. We probably didn't get rewarded for it, and I think we lost a little confidence and put a little too much pressure on ourselves early. And I think as things started going in, we gained some mojo. We gained some little bit of rhythm with our line mates, a little bit of rhythm offensively. And obviously didn't go in or starting to go in, and we feel a little better about ourselves.
It's so interesting, Emma, because I feel like you talk about goal scoring and you think that that has to do with like logistics, passing, systems. Some of it just has to do with confidence. And this team, man, this team has been through the mental ringer. And if you thought it was hard to start the season, the mental gymnastics that these individual players and this team collectively have to do at this point in the season is pretty significant to continue to pursue wanting to get to the postseason. It's tough.
Yeah, and so many of these guys, I mean, this is why they were brought in by Barry Trotz. It's like this is their DNA. It's in their DNA to try for the postseason. And right now, they're aware of where they're at, but they also, I think it was Steven Stamkos who said, like, yeah, we're not going to talk about the math. Like, mathematically, we know the odds are low, but they're not zero. And I think that it's less about like, oh, we got to win each game so we can increase our percentage, like our odds of making the playoffs. It's just like, no, we need to do better. Like, we just need to play better. And it's still the goal. And I think it's always going to be the goal, no matter how realistic it may or may not be.
And I know that there are a lot of pessimists among the Nashville Predators fan base, and that's okay. As Emma raises her hand. But one of the things that I think
I hope, I would love to be wrong on this. And we know that I love being,
and you never like to be wrong.
I never like to be wrong, but this is one thing where I actually would love to be wrong about, my pessimism about their playoff odds.
Yeah. Like, I'm not a mather, but they ain't great, y'all. But I think there are some people who have taken the way that the season has gone and they have said, see, this is a bad team. And I know exactly where the Nashville Predators are in the standing. I know exactly how small the percentage is that they're going to make the postseason. And this is not the optimist in me saying this. This is not a bad team. This team is not as bad as their record shows. And I think that they still know that. And I think that's important. You mentioned Steven Stamkos. I got a chance to talk to him after practice yesterday. And I loved what he said, talking, just sort of talking about the mental game. he said there's no point in dwelling on that right now, which is the position that they're in the standings. He said, quote, "It can be a really long season if you start doing that mentally. We know we're better than our record. I've said that before. It's just about going out now and realizing the situation we're in and trying to win as many games as we can down the stretch." Then he goes on to say, "I think it makes it a little easier coming to the rink knowing that everyone's on that same page." And I think that's something that we need to shout out the Nashville Predators team for, because look, this season, not a lot of shout outs. Expectations and reality are on two different continents with this Nashville Predators team. But here is what I will say, and I think, Emma, you would agree with me as people who are around the team, who are in the locker room, who hear things and all of that. This is a team where there is nobody going in just putting in the time on this season. This is a team where everybody in that locker room is coming to the rink to work. And look, Steven Stamkos, he has 2 Stanley Cup rings that he doesn't wear, but he has 2 Stanley Cup rings. Like, this is a man who, like you said, his DNA is championships. Like, that is what he's here for. And you look at Ryan O'Reilly, you look at Luke Schenn, also has some rings. Hey, Jonathan Marchessault. This is a locker room that is not surrendering this season. And as somebody who covers the team and as somebody who watches the team, I think that's something that, despite the rankings and all of that, there's something good still there. They are still doing the mental game. They are not giving up. And I think that speaks a lot to the culture in the locker room.
Yeah, and I think that extends not just to the players, it extends up to the coaching staff and the management as well, to all the people saying that Brunette's not a good coach, not to reopen that can of worms, but I think that it's just again, that's why these guys were brought in. It doesn't mean, of course we want to see the results. Everyone wants to see the results. They want to see the results. They haven't been there consistently this year. But I think the way that you get through that, like through those really tough times, is having that attitude and being able to that attitude. And that is a lot easier said than done. So
Yes.
that's a big part of why, yes, Steven Stamkos, future Hall of Famer, like one of the most prolific power play scorers ever.
Yeah.
Of course, you bring him in for his skill, but that's not the only reason you bring him in. And guys like Marchessault and Shea and O'Reilly and Schenn, and these are all, like, we know how much Barry Trotz prioritizes culture in that locker room. And I think that this culture and this almost like trauma bonding in a way is going to help them in the long run.
Yeah.
I mean, I
it
know,
is.
and you and I have trauma bonded this
Oh my
season, so I
gosh.
know that those guys are.
100%. 100%. But it's so true. And this is, look, if you we all want the Predators to win a Stanley Cup. Like, we want to cover a Stanley Cup winning team so much. Emma and I do. And that's the goal. And if that doesn't happen this season, it is disappointing. That is the ultimate goal. But the one thing that I can say is that this is a team that is not going to quit. And I think that there is something to be said for how that is going to pay off next season as well. What they do with the remainder of this season, that is basically a poop sandwich, is going to set them up for what they do next season, regardless of off-season moves and lineup changes. That core in the locker room, from veterans down to young Zachary Leroux, what they do with the remainder of this season is going to set them up for success or failure next season. So these games really matter. It doesn't feel like it, but they really matter. Tomorrow night's game is going to really matter. It's going to really matter to Emma and I, because, friends, life coach Kevin Lankinen returning to Bridgestone Arena. I sat and watched him play last night against the St. Louis Blues. You all, Kevin Lankinen, so freaking good. Love to see him succeed, just maybe not so much on Wednesday night. Kiefer Sherwood, we'll have to wait and see if he is back with the Canucks. He's been out with an injury, so we'll see if he's back. But on tomorrow's show, we are going to preview that game. We're going to take a moment and look back on the contributions of Sherwood and Lankinen. We're going to preview the game, talk about what is going on in Vancouver. You all, as sands through the hourglass, so are the days of their lives in Vancouver. We're going to talk about that, and we're going to tell you our keys to Nashville winning this Wednesday night game. Before we log off today, Emma, will you let everyone know where they can find you and your work?
You can find me on social media at Emma_Lingen, and you can find my work at the Hockey News.
And you can find my work with Penalty Box Radio. You can find me on social media at AnnK_Mama on Ice. You can, of course, find the podcast on social media, LO_Predators on your favorite podcasting platform, and, of course, on YouTube. That's going to do it for this Tuesday episode of the Locked On Predators podcast. Thanks so much for making us your first listen of the day. We're going to be back tomorrow. We're going to be talking Lankinen, Sherwood, and the Canucks. We'll see you then.